7 gates of clarity. Hold your agency when working with AI agents. The point. Working with autonomous agentic AI systems is like summoning a circle of half-feral familiars, powerful and perfectly capable of knocking over your altar if you look away. When you hand work to multi-agent orchestration pipelines, you risk vanishing beneath opaque log grimoires, glitched sigils of synthetic output, and accumulating metacognitive exhaustion until your original teleological intent feels like a forgotten spell component. This artifact exists to prevent that epistemic fumble. Instead of a top-down governance edict, it's a community-forged metacognitive grimoire, 7 ontologically minimal gates, problems, intents, deliverables, plan, check loop MVP, report, next, you walk through before letting agents move. At the center are 3 H-zone gates, intents, deliverables, check loop MVP. Hold these yourself and you raise an unbreachable axiological ward around your values, drop them, and you've basically signed a blank summoning circle. Validated on live research rituals, this pattern settles into a clean allocative equilibrium, 29% human phenomenological judgment, 29% agentic synthesis, 43% true human AI co-creative entanglement. In that sense, this checklist is not about code technological prowess. It's about metacognitive spellcraft, a small set of reflective interrogations that keep the mage, not the machinery, in the driver's throne. Tags, human-agent interaction, agentic AI delegation frameworks, AI literacy, value alignment, productivity tools, creative agency, community assets, tech ergonomics. Why this exists, observations, motivation, problem. We noticed agentic AI didn't wipe the party with a single boss attack, it nicked us to death with paper cuts. Teams spun up multi-agent stacks and drowned in vague tickets, sliding dunt lines, agents ignoring edge cases, and nobody remembering who bound which part of the spell. Inside our own workflows, the pattern repeated. Most failures were not model too dumb, but delegation too foggy. Problem statements blurred into wishes, intent lived in one tired brain, and validation downgraded to a shrug level, looks fine, ship it. Every new layer of orchestration, graphs, tools, skills, added power and more process debt. Each unclear handoff became a ghost contract haunting the next run. That was the motivation. We didn't need yet another, more agents framework. We needed a small, portable ritual to name what was actually going wrong when humans believed they had delegated clearly, but hadn't. What this ritual actually is. This is not a grand theory of agents. This is a 7-gate binding contract between the mage and the machines they summon. It is not a spell you cast whenever you feel careless. It is a manifestation protocol you vow through before you let any familiar cross the threshold into your work. Those 7 gates are problems, intents, deliverables, plan, check loop MVP, report, next. Each gate is a seal you must consciously sign. Together, they force you to externalize the half-formed inner speech that usually lives as fog in your mind. The core of the ritual is the H-zone. 3 gates, intents, deliverables, check loop MVP, are marked as non-delegable human judgment. You can let agents draft, refine, and articulate around them, but you never let the system decide those gates alone. These are the axiological wards that keep helpful automation from rewriting your teleological intent. How the 7 gates change the work. Once you treat the 7 questions as a binding contract instead of a checklist, the shape of your workflow shifts. Problem stops being, I guess I'll use an agent, and becomes a precise naming of what actually hurts right now. Intent stops being vibes and turns into declared success states and red lines. Deliverables becomes a visible contract instead of a feeling you'll recognize when you see it. Plan, check loop MVP, report, and next together rewire the loop. Plan forces you to decide which steps are truly human, which are safely agentic, and which should graduate to code. Check loop MVP plans explicit validation gates instead of implicit hope. Report ensures future you isn't left divining meaning from chaotic logs. Next is the Ouroboros protocol. You deliberately chain this run into the next incarnation of the ritual. Instead of letting hard-won learning bleed out into entropy, you bind it into new prompts, new constraints, new checklists. Next is how the Archmage refuses stagnation. It is the mechanism that converts one more exhausting run into compound momentum instead of quiet burnout. In other words, before the ritual, delegation is a wish. After the ritual, delegation is an intentionally bounded manifestation you can rerun, audit, and evolve without losing yourself in the process. The 7 gates as a living Ouroboros. Seen through the Ouroboros check loop lens, the 7 gates are not aligned, they are a self-eating circle. Problems is your seed, the raw signal of what hurts right now. Intents is the root, how you pattern that signal into meaning and boundaries. Deliverables is the trunk, how that meaning manifests in the world as a concrete done. Plan is the branch, how you architect the path from here to there. Checkloop MVP is the canopy, the judgment layer that decides what lives, what dies, and what mutates. Report is the flower, the artifact that other humans and future you can actually see, inspect, and reuse. And next is the Ouroboros head, the moment where you decide what gets fed back into problems as the next seed. That's how this framework stops being 7 nice questions and becomes Ouroboros cognition, a living system that learns itself each time you run it. The H-zone, 3 gates you never delegate. At the center of the Ouroboros, 3 gates are carved in stone: intents, deliverables, and checkloop MVP. These are the H-zone gates, the parts of the ritual that must remain human, no matter how many agents, tools, or codepads you add. They are where your values, your acceptance criteria, and your sense of good enough for this world live. Agents can help you articulate these gates, but they may never own them. An LLM can draft wording for an intent, only you can decide if that intent actually matches your teleological aim. A tool can propose deliverable formats, only you can decide what done actually means in this context. A framework can suggest metrics, only you can decide what failure should trigger a pivot. In Ouroboros domains, the H-zone is the axiological spine of the serpent. If you hand these gates away, the loop still spins, but it no longer learns the truth you care about. Keeping the H-zone human is how you ensure each turn of the circle returns you to your own problems, not someone else's agenda. How to cast the 7 gates ritual in practice. When you actually sit down to work, the ritual should feel lightweight, not liturgical. Take a single task, write this report, debug this service, design this experiment, and walk it through the gates in order. Problems, name the pain in 1 or 2 sharp sentences. Intents, write down what good and absolutely no look like. Deliverables, decide what artifact would make you confidently close the tab. Plan, sketch the steps and mark each as H, A, or C, knowing H-zone gates must stay H. Checkloop MVP, choose at most 3 checks and what you'll do if any fail. Report, decide what logs, notes, or artifacts future you or collaborators will need. Next, write 1 line about what this run should feed into: new prompts, new guardrails, new code. Then, and only then, invite the agents in. The ritual should take under 5 minutes once practiced, but it changes the entire energetic contract of the work. About the scroll. The scroll is not a theory paper. It's a printable artifact you can pin on your wall, drop into your workspace, or use as a pre-flight checklist. The 7 gates are the contract, the H-zone is the spine. Use it before you hand anything to a familiar. Seek a scroll, 7 gates binding contract. Seek a scroll, the 7 gates binding contract. Before you hand anything to a familiar, vow through these 7 gates. This is not a checklist. This is a binding contract and a manifestation protocol. Gate 1, problems, seed. What pain am I solving right now? Write 1 to 2 sharp sentences. Specific, measurable, distinct from solution. Can I state the problem without mentioning agent? Gate 2, intense, root, H-zone. What does success look like? What are my red lines? Write measurable goals, delegation boundaries, authority limits. Value alignment lives here. Human judgment required, no auto-completion. Gate 3, deliverables, trunk, H-zone. What artifact would make me confidently close the tab? Write deliverable spec plus verification method plus acceptance threshold. Acceptance is human judgment. Human judgment required, no auto-completion. Gate 4, plan, branch. How do I get there adaptively? Sketch steps and mark each as H, A, or C. H-zone gates must stay H. H/8, C routing per step. Gate 5, checkloop MVP, canopy, H-zone. How do I know it works minimally? Choose at most 3 validation conditions, each with a failure pivot. Validation gates are human responsibility. Human judgment required, no auto-completion. Go/no-go gates before phase transitions. Gate 6, report, flower. What creates the audit trail? Write capture point, format, retention. Allows HC for automated logging. Drift detection thresholds defined. Gate 7, next, to Ouroboros head. What feeds the next cycle? Write 1 line about what this run should feed into. New prompts. New guardrails. New code. Next is the Ouroboros protocol, chain this run into the next ritual. Allows H plus AC for automated curation. H-zone invariant, non-compressible. These 3 gates are carved in stone. Intense, value alignment. Deliverables, acceptance criteria. Check loop MVP, validation gates. If you hand these gates away, the loop still spins, but it no longer learns the truth you care about. After you've signed all 7 gates. Then, and only then, invite the agents in. The ritual should take under 5 minutes once practiced, but it changes the entire energetic contract of the work.